Well, when the story turned into a really big story, I went to the sheriff's office and I tried to talk with him, and he's really been no help. I mean, it's I joined the search party, and I called when we didn't find anything on the search party, and I told him I thought we should still keep looking because I know there are clues out there. You know, I still go out and I still look, and I know there's something out there. He's talked to me a few times, but he doesn't want to hear anything I have to say.
December 12th, 1994.
Dear Sheriff Cravens, I have tried repeatedly to reach you on the phone, but you have not returned any of my calls. You and I both know the history of Burkittsville and the events that have earned our town its peculiar reputation. Past events have proven that something evil resides in the Black Hills that surround us. The same Black Hills that those 3 young people hiked into a few months ago and never came back from. I urge you to look to the past for the answers you seek. Sincerely, Dottie Fulcher. They won't tell me anything. That's why there's this feeling that I have that they know more than they're willing to talk about. I think they don't want to admit that they saw her and that she's there. You know, Ellie is not very far from any of us at any time, and she chooses her time to appear. And they just don't want to acknowledge that.
My name is Lucan Johnson, and I'm a witch. Well, witchcraft is basically a science. You have a delineation between paganism or polytheistic religions, more than one god, and witchcraft, which is a scientific study of energies and materials. By the power of air, I bless and consecrate thee. From the goddess to the god, so mote it be. Wiccanism is a new religion. Now what you got to understand here, man, is we lost most of the records for what would be considered witchcraft throughout the latter part of the 17 to 1800s, and a lot beforehand with the burning times, as we refer to it.
Bring out Elizabeth Selwyn.
These are when people were tortured and killed, the Salem witch hunts. Simple case of bad bread, the grain in the bread caused hallucinogenics. You get a bunch of kids hallucinating that someone is making fun of them or torturing them, and of course parents are going to react in a protective manner, and before you know it, people are dying by the hundreds because so-and-so did something evil.
Witch!
Most of the time it wasn't anything to do with evil. These were people that were trying to help through either natural lore, herbalism, any kind of medicine that may not have been standard practice.
Burn the witch!
But by the Revolutionary War, these trials, which were quite common at the time, had somewhat faded out, and witchcraft was a thing of the past, except in the rural areas. And there we had a lot of superstition among the populations, and people still practice witchcraft. 2 examples come to my mind, one being the 1786 case of the Blair Witch of Maryland, and the other one being the Bell Witch of Adams, Tennessee in 1817. Now, while both of these cases are interesting academically, I find the Blair Witch of Maryland the most colorful.
I mean, what's your take on the Blair Witch at this point? Do you think she exists?
I don't know. This is Burkittsville, formerly Blair. It is a small, quiet Maryland town, much like a small, quiet town anywhere.
Well, I'm Bill Barnes. I'm the executive director to the Historical Society here in Burkittsville. I've been that quite a few years and known as the town historian. And I've tried to keep up with our history and make it be alive to the people that come behind me. Burkittsville was actually founded on another old town by the name of Blair, and it was founded here in 1734 to protect the western approaches to Baltimore from attack by the Indians and so forth. But it died out because of a witch. Her name was Ellie Kedwards, and she took a bunch of the children and kidnapped them and carried them off into the woods, and they never found them again. And the people became very afraid, and they pulled up and left and abandoned the town. And it stayed abandoned for 40 years.
Though records from this period of history are scarce, this registry of the seafaring vessel, the Reliant, shows that a woman named Ellie Kedward, the woman history has labeled as the Blair Witch, did in fact sail from Ireland to Baltimore in the summer of 1769.
The Blair Witch story begins like all other witch stories and legends with an old haggard lady, and in this particular case she was a Catholic living in a predominantly Protestant community.
The story goes that she had bled a few children, and by that pinpricks, probably because of some sort of illness that she detected or something to that effect. The children went back, reported it to their parents. This is, of course, at that time an early sign of witchcraft. She was tried, summarily convicted, and banished. The winter she was banished was supposedly the worst ever, and no one knows what happened to her. She was left by herself out in the woods.
What they did was they blindfolded her, took her out into the woods, and this was in the middle of the winter, tied her to a tree, and left her, where she soon succumbed to the elements.
The following year, the young lady who was her first accuser and most of the other children who were her accusers and children of the village vanished throughout the course of the winter. By the end of the winter, over half the town's children had disappeared.
Well, immediately the townspeople blamed these disappearances on Ellie the Witch. The people simply vacated the area. They left. They abandoned the community, and they never spoke about the incident again.
As he related to me, he had lived in a small town 40 miles to the north. The place had been abandoned, he told me, as it had come under a curse. The well-built homes that still stood there were boarded up and empty, with no sign as to why their denizens had chosen to leave so abruptly. This man had heard that the town had been cursed by a witch, and he claimed he had seen a cemetery full of the gravestones of children. But whether that is true or not, I could not say.
In 1809, a rare book about the occurrences surrounding the Blair Witch legend was discovered, entitled The Blair Witch Cult. This tome is supposedly a collection of first-hand accounts that illustrate the effects of the infamous Blair Witch.
And the book is filled with bloodletting, all kinds of bloody gore, witchcraft, paganism. Basically, it's a pack of lies. Don't believe any of it. But the people of the time did believe in it.
The awful hag wrenched the boy's head from his writhing body and defiled the church with his warm blood. It was then that I noticed a dog's teeth had sprouted from her leg. She controlled the animals of the forest, even the trees seeming to do her bidding. When she walked, she didn't touch the ground, and her followers made a horrible mulch of the countless dead littering the streets.
The Blair Witch Cult, by Anonymous, 1809.
But it was about the Blair Witch, and it was pretty true, pretty factual book about what really happened here. But the Maryland Historical Society wanted it back, and they took it over, almost over my dead body. But I couldn't keep it because it didn't belong to them.
38 years later, a chance encounter resurrected the abandoned township of Blair.
They were building a railroad through here, and the gentleman was building the railroad, was out riding his horse and got lost, stumbled up on an old road, and it led into what was Blair at the time. He had a friend named Burkett, and Mr. Burkett was a developer, and he talked him into coming here and developing this here, and he named it Burkittsville. The town was actually formed in about 1824, and right about a year after that, the crops had come in. The wheat was mostly what the farmers grew there, and the crops were in, and they decided to have a picnic down on the local creek.